is going on, everyone? It's your guy, Cole Jackson, back with another episode of the Film Room where we're going to be diving into the Ravens' defensive dominance on fourth down against the Los Angeles Chargers on Sunday. If you're enjoying these film breakdowns, go ahead, click the like button, hit subscribe so you can find your way back. Before we get into it, I'd like to take a second to say a huge thank you to the sponsor of the 2021 Film Room series. It's our friends over at the Flavor Cupcakery and Babe Shop, Harford County's sweetest bake shop, and the winners of season 4 of Cupcake Wars on the Food Network, so you know they're legit. Flavor specializes in freshly baked cupcakes and many other sweet treats, as well as La Colombe coffee and espresso drinks. And this is a perfect opportunity to tell you that Flavor has their annual breast cancer awareness fundraiser coming up on Friday, October 22nd. That's this Friday, where a portion of all of their sales will go toward the National Breast Cancer Foundation. They'll also have 3 special flavors for the day. And, highly recommend you guys check that out. Support them, support a great cause, and you get some cupcakes at the same time. So what can go wrong there? And before we get into it, we have a very special guest joining me in the film room this week. It's my guy, Dan Reese. Dan, how are you doing, my guy?
I'm doing great. Wish I was in Maryland so I could check out those cupcakes.
I know,
Unfortunately,
man.
not out
Yeah,
here in
we
California.
we got 3 flavors. We got raspberry amaretto, we got love cake, and we got very berry cheesecake. I might have to hop the border and get down there.
Good.
So this is a great opportunity, Dan. I'm so pumped to have you on because I've said it a few times, and now I finally get to put my money where my mouth is. Big focus I wanted to have on this channel was trying to bring in different voices. We get people in the film community, we got people that look at the game more from the analytics community, but let's work together. Let's show both perspectives. And this is exactly where we're going to be doing it. I mean, this basically our DMs, that's always what we're talking about, right? It's kind of what you're looking at from the analytical side. Here's what I see from the film side. Let's learn from one another. Let's put it all together. So that's what we're going to be doing today. And I thought there'd be no better opportunity than to take a look at the Ravens defense on fourth down, because it was a key piece in that game. And just to give you guys some context, kind of the overview, coming into this game, the Chargers gained, I guess, some notoriety. I think it was a lot of recency bias, but people talking about the aggressiveness on fourth down. And I think a lot of that kind of came from the Browns game, because they went for it on fourth down on 3 different times and were successful on all 3. Kind of looking at things overall, the Chargers have the 3rd most fourth down attempts with 12 on the year. 4 of those came on Sunday. But I think what's really important when we're looking at the Chargers fourth down offense, it's how successful they've been. So right now they're standing at 8 for 12, if I have it correctly. Yeah, 8 for 12. And prior to the game, they're 9 for 12. Prior to this game, they were 7 for 8. Yes, that's right. No, I have that wrong.
8 for 12. Yep, 8 for 12, and before that they were 7 for 8.
That's
So,
right. Okay.
yep.
Not a math guy. And,
I got your back, Cole. Don't worry about it.
exactly. So I mean, and that's the key point, right? It's that the Chargers were going for it on fourth down, but they were having a lot of success. I mean, 7 for 8 is no joke. It's 2019 Ravens-esque in terms of aggressiveness and success. So that's really what the key focus was. But obviously, going into this game, the Chargers went 1 for 4. What we're really going to focus on, I had our guy at Yoshi 2052 throw this together, because I don't really want to get too into the latter 2 fourth quarter fourth downs, just because, I mean, the game was 34-6 at that time. I think they're kind of irrelevant. We're really going to focus on the first 2 that came in the second and third quarter. And, Dan, is that the right way to do this? Like, how much should we be looking at those fourth quarter fourth downs?
Yeah, by the time, we're in the end of the fourth quarter, when they're down, what was it, 34-6, you got to go for it,
Yeah.
no matter what. Any decisions there, you got to take them with a grain of salt anyway. Are you really trying to win anymore? Are you just trying to practice different things? It's the win probability there is almost 0. So, you don't really have to focus on those 2. It was really the first 2 that were key decisions that the Chargers had to make, and really, played pretty significant roles in the results. So.
Absolutely. And that's just so you guys know, that's how we're going to do this. So basically what we're going to do is Dan's going to kind of walk us through the decision-making model. One thing Dan said on Twitter on Sunday that stood out to me, and why I reached out to him is he said, right decision, wrong play calls. And so, what better way to actually walk through what that means than looking at the decision making and then looking at the play call? Because I think we're going to see some themes that pop out with the play calling and kind of who they targeted specifically. Spoiler alert. I think the way you said it was a really, really good point. So, are you ready to get into it? Let's start with the first one.
Let's do it.
All right. So, Dan, walk us through this. What am I looking at? And if I don't understand this stuff, which I don't, I can't even count. Kind of walk me through each chart here, kind of what you're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we'll look on the left half. This is something that comes out on Twitter from Ben Baldwin. Highly recommend following that. It gives you every fourth down live and gives you kind of the decision making that goes into it. So it's really it's really fun to follow them. It's based off of a model called the NFL Faster model, and what what that model does, it breaks down. And one of the things that the model does is it calculates win probability based off of um, where in the field you are, what the score is, and all sorts of different inputs. And it does it based off of historical experience. So what this is doing is determining the win probability based off of the two possibilities that a team has from 61 yards left to go. So they're on 39. So realistically, a field goal isn't an option here. So they can either go for it or punt. So um, what this is showing, the key two numbers here are the 8 and 7, and that's the expected win probability based off of each action. So let's talk about punting first. So with a punt, you can the ball can end up in any of the yard lines, between between any of the goal lines, including a touchdown or a touchback. And each one has a different probability of happening. So using those probabilities based off of historical experience, you can calculate an expected result. So what the model does is for every possible outcome of where the punt will result, whether say it ends up, it's a touchback and it ends up on the 20, then after that play, there's a new win probability. So what happens with the model is it calculates an expected win probability based off of the weighted results of the possible, end results from the punt. So that's how you get the 7%. So on average, after a punt, the Chargers would have 7% chance of winning. And then similar thing happens with the go for it. You've got all the different possible outcomes. It's not just whether you get the first down or not. You could score a touchdown on on the play. We've seen that with Ingram last year, right? I think where it was a touchdown on the fourth down. So
Yeah.
the model takes in all different chances of things happening, and again calculates an expected, a weighted expected result on a win probability. And in this case, it's 8%. The other numbers are, they kind of add some background to it, but really the numbers you want to focus on are the 8 and 7. The 53% is, out of all the different chances of going for it, you've got a 53% chance of getting a first down. And then the numbers on the right say if you fail, your win probability drops down to 5. And if you succeed, your win probability is 10. So, that's how you get a mix of the 5 and 10 gets you the 8. So, it's not a huge difference between the 8 and 7, right? They were way behind here. So either way, really low chance of winning at this point. But the 1% increase is more than a 10% increase of the 7%. So 1/7 there. It's a pretty significant increase in percentage of chances to win. So based off of the model, that's really kind of why it was saying to go for it.
Right, and that makes sense. I mean, I wasn't necessarily surprised with this one with the
Mm-hmm.
decision, because of kind of the aggressiveness I saw in the Browns game. I guess what did surprise me, and I know there's no way of factoring momentum into this, and I get that because it's how do you control for that, right? But it gave me the vibe of the 2019 Titans playoff game because I just felt like the Ravens weren't kind of playing their game. They weren't executing. And then to go into that fourth down decision, the first one, where, they had been going for it fourth down, similar to the Chargers, but they were having success. But those offenses were also executing in those games a lot differently. So, it's one of those things where I think for me, coming from kind of the other side of things, it's like, how do I factor momentum into that decision making? And that's really where, it's up to the coach, right? The coach has to take in the statistical model, because you can't say that's not relevant. It's absolutely relevant, like we're seeing right here. And then he has to kind of have his, and then there's also something to be said about a coach sticking to their identity. Like if you're a guy that goes for it and that's kind of ingrained in your team culture, then, you're more prone to go for it. I think we saw that with Staley, because that's kind of been the conversation about him. But I mean, at the same time, you also have to kind of have that feel for your team, right?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of decisions that have to be made, right? That's why the model is really just a tool
Exactly.
for the
Well said.
coaches to decide. You don't, any coach that would decide blindly based off of this model is using it incorrectly, right? This is based off of all teams across the board, based off of history. It's got takes in a number of variables into play, but it doesn't take everything into play. Um, you have to be a little bit careful when you talk about momentum with someone that's trying to talk analytics, because analytics currently there isn't any models that support the concept of momentum.
Right.
Me, as someone that's watched it and played some sports, I personally believe that there is something, and that models just haven't been able to quantify it yet. Um, but so that's something very hard to kind of argue about momentum. But all of the situational things do come into play, right? This is all of that's taken into consideration in the model, the time that's left, the score, and the position on the field. So a lot of those are actually already kind of baked into the model. So you don't want to over adjust the model results by saying, okay, but we're down by 14. It's like, right, the model already knows that. You don't want to adjust the results to double count that. So
Right.
so there are things to discuss, how your offense has been doing relative to the game on defense. But I think that all kind of, you still need to try to win. And based off of the model, your win probability is increased by going for it. So
And then what are we looking at on the second half here on the
uh,
right?
on the right is really similar. Next Gen Stats does another model, and what they're doing is they're looking at kind of what happened with the play, right? They expected the increase in win probability the expected win probability to increase by 1.2% if you go for it. So that's very similar to what we saw on the left. And what it shows at the bottom there is that pre-snap, not knowing anything about the play, there was a 51.5% chance in converting, so a little bit lower than the 53% that we saw on the left. But then once they take into account the play design, the completion was actually dropped down all the way down to 44.3. So as we talk about the play, it really shows, based off of the model from Next Gen Stats, the route and the completion and the execution really dropped the likelihood of converting significantly.
Right. And so let's get right into it, because, I found this one interesting. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of walk through. I'm going to do what I always do. I'm going to play it, and then I'll kind of walk through it. So I'm going to play the sideline angle here first, and we'll just kind of see Humphrey gets targeted at the top, incomplete. Humphrey flexes, hits his helmet. You'd love to see it. All right. So what are we looking at here? So basically, Ravens come up. They're lined up in nickel personnel that with Bynes and Harrison as the two inside linebackers on the field. Campbell, Williams, Matabike, and McPhee are the four down linemen. But something to highlight here: at the top of the defensive line, you have Harrison lined up, and then you have Bynes here in the middle. And this is just Wink Martindale being Wink Martindale, where not all nickel personnel is the same in his scheme, and this is exactly why. You kind of have Harrison lined up as an outside linebacker, but then he's going to drop. And then what they also did was they brought Deshaun Elliott all the way up to into the box to kind of look like they had a 5-man line with two linebackers, but they didn't. And then, of course, it wouldn't be a high leverage moment without a blitz. So when I play it here and the snap happens, that's Jimmy Smith, who was originally lined up as the slot cornerback. He's going to blitz while Bynes and Harrison drop off of that edge. So that obviously left Rashawn Slater. That's what they're trying to do here. They basically want to get it so that they have one-on-ones on the left side of the defensive line, because Rashawn Slater now, who was focused on Malik Harrison, has no one to block until he goes and finds work and the defensive line shifts. So that's kind of what's happening right there. Looking at the Chargers, they're in 11 personnel. They have Guyton here in the slot. They have Mike Williams up top, Keenan Allen down in the Z, and then they have Jared Cook as a tight end and Eckler. So that's your 11 personnel. And the offensive play call is actually pretty simple. Watch both wide receivers. They're going to go up. They both run hitches right there. And then you're going to have a deep cross here from Guyton in the slot and a shallow cross from Jared Cook. And, this sounds really simple, but this was just a play where I'm gonna ask my wide receivers to run past the first down marker. They run a 7-yard hitch on 4th and 3. So they're gonna run 7 yards and they're just gonna try and win against the cornerback. There was nothing schematically complex here. You watch both. Herbert, sees it. He tries to make a play on it. And, kind of what happened here is, Humphrey just played more physical than Mike Williams did. And we'll get another look here. So you'll see Jimmy Smith drop in from the left side. They go, Harrison drops. They're trying to create kind of some, and Matabike gets a little bit of inside there, but the ball came out so quick. We don't get too much from the view here, but you can just see, Humphrey's all up in Mike Williams' kitchen. The ball's also thrown a little high, so I think that's got to be factored in. Let's see if we can see a closer look of the throw coming in up there at the top of your screen. So, I mean, like I said, it's not an overly complex play. It's just I'm going to ask my wide receiver to go make a play. Dan and I were talking before we recorded, reminded me a lot of that play that Joe Flacco had in the Super Bowl where it was on 3rd down. He just threw it up to Anquan Bolden at the first down marker. It's that type of approach. So let's pause there on the offensive play call for a second. Dan, what do you think about that?
I'm not going to pretend that I'm, an offensive coordinator genius. So I don't know, every possible situation that they should have called or anything like that. But, and I don't think a pass call is a pass play is the wrong call here. You've got 3 yards, which is pretty long for the run success that they've had. But I don't think the matchup is where you want to try and Mike Williams, who wasn't 100% in this game, against Humphrey, who's playing lights out. I just wouldn't have targeted that matchup. And when you watch, so I don't think the play design is great. That that's one of the things is they're just trying to ask him to win that one-on-one. But if you're going to do that, don't pick that matchup. Pick the other one with blanking with Avery and Keenan Allen, right? Like you can see how wide open it is. Yeah, he may have broke if the quarterback was looking that way. But even Guyton across the middle looks pretty open. If he just hesitated, he looks quickly there, but Bynes takes that away. I don't think I think he's just staring at that decision already, and that wouldn't have been where I looked to try and target Humphrey. He was ridiculous this game. I saw some stats and said he shattered Mike Williams 11 of 15 routes before the injury, allowing 1 catch for 1 yard on 2 targets. So it's like, don't throw at him.
Pick
on the other
and
guys.
it is interesting because you made a key point there, and something that surprised me watching it back, because Elliott is up at the line here and he's going to backpedal to get into the split safety with Chuck Clark, and because Josh Bynes is going to drop left because Harrison's dropping on the right. It actually does look at Guyton's slot route right here. He's going to just run a deep cross or an intermediate cross. And I mean, the ball's still not out, right? So I think you're right. Like, this is one of those plays where I completely agree with you. I think it's just he knows where he's going before the snap. And then when he gets lined up out there and there's no safety help over the top, it's just one on one. But I agree with you. It's just like, I think if I get out there, I look and I'm like, okay, I got Williams against Hump, or I got, Allen over there against Averett. I mean, Keenan Allen's one of the best route runners in the league. So this is where, sometimes it's always easier to second guess play call. I get it, but I mean, that's part of the analysis, right? Like it's when you line up and you kind of see the one-on-ones, even if that is your first read, well, I mean, you got, there's another guy over on the other side of the field. So it did definitely surprise me. It really kind of played out like what I compared it to. It's just I'm going to ask my guy to go up and make a play on the ball. And it's, it is what it is. It worked out in our favor, but it did surprise me based on the pre-snap alignment that, especially because he doesn't have any significant pressure coming at him, that, maybe he looks and maybe I'll go back and check Guyton, but then you're scanning left to right and, then you're kind of hesitating. And so again, it's always hard to second guess, but I agree with you. I think when you get lined up pre-snap and we kind of look at it right from this perspective, and I like, I mean, maybe Chuck Clark being this far over made him second guess, maybe he'd have some safety help. I mean, I didn't really look too like Chuck Clark kind of comes down here. I mean, Herbert's looking left the whole time, but maybe that influenced the decision making. But I think overall that's the key point. And he just kind of, I don't think I'm going at Marlon Humphrey in this situation. And then interestingly enough, and we'll get into it in the next play. So we got the model back up both sides again. So walk us through what we're looking at here.
Yeah, so this one is kind of, it's really interesting because it's such a difference between what you kind of would normally think of based off of the yard line and what the model is suggesting. 4th and 1 from your own 19, so 81 yards left. Same sort of model we were looking at before. 70% chance of success with 1 yard to go. Again, really low win probabilities. They're down. I think it was down 18 at this point. And so you've got a 3% versus a 2%. So again, not a huge swing, but 50% difference, right? Overall, looking at the two probabilities for the Chargers to win. So when you think about the 19-yard line, you're like, no way, you don't go for this. The game's not over. That's kind of the historical way of thinking about it. But really, it's not even a very close decision when you look at the model. You go for it. You need 3 scores. You're way down. You need to get moving. So you really need to get going. And that's really kind of where the big difference is. So.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I think that's a really good way of putting it, because I do remember when they lined up and they're on their 19. At first, I was like, "What in the world are they doing?" But then when I really thought about it, I was just kind of like, it was just kind of the flow of the game, right? Like they didn't really have the time where they got their momentum back and where we thought things kind of could have shifted was the Lamar interception, and that came after the Deshaun Elliott interception, which I was kind of like, okay, now I'm kind of, what's going to happen here? And then, the Ravens kind of took control back. I think that was in the second quarter, if I have that correct. But, at this point, it's kind of back into the Ravens are kind of controlling the flow of things. And so, from that perspective, it's like, okay, when they lined up, I was like, okay, that this kind of makes sense, even though it seems crazy just because it is the 19-yard line. But when you think about it, you factor in their aggressiveness, and you factor in like, punting it doesn't really do much for them in that scenario, right? The Ravens offense is controlling them. Kind of reminds me of the Indy game last week where, the offense wasn't really moving in the first half and the defense, couldn't stop anything. And so that's probably how the Chargers are feeling in that situation. But one thing that stood out to me was the second half, because I thought this was really interesting to look at the run versus pass decision. So walk us through that.
Yeah. So, so next gen stats had more of a toss up, and the big reason for that it was only 0.4%, was that next gen stats actually has GPS trackers. I think like something like 200 of them all throughout the field, whether it's on the players or they actually have one on the ball. So the 1 yard was actually 1.9 yards. It was just short of two. But when they said it
Okay.
in the broadcast and all the stats, it actually said 1 yard. So, everything, all the models are 4th and 1, which is a lot easier than to convert. But using the GPS tracker on the ball, it was actually 1.9 yards. So huge difference, and that's kind of one of the interesting things about the model is, how exact all these measurements are, right?
Yeah, no, and
Um,
like you said, that's relevant. Like 1 yard. I
mhm,
mean, it's kind of the difference between point 0.9 and 1, or not, sorry. Well, yeah, point 0.9 and 1. Like you'll either see 4th and 1 or 4th and inches, right? And fourth and
right,
inches seems a lot closer than 4th and 1. So
right.
that's a good point. And I'm surprised. I wonder if the NFL is going to do anything to kind of incorporate. Maybe they won't be showing 4th and 1.9 or anything, but maybe having like a little next gen tracker there that could kind of pop that up real time. That'd be interesting to see.
Yeah, I show you a little bit closer to real life
Yeah.
what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
but I think that's the big thing because like a QB sneak is a lot harder from 2 yards out versus 1 yard. You can't just fall
Absolutely.
forward. So, taking that into consideration, though, the offense had a higher chance to convert if they ran it at 58% versus pass at 55%. So not a ton, pretty close actually. Kind of versus what I expected, but I think that's really is the 4th and 2 versus the 4th and 1. I think it's a lot higher for 4th and 1, just a lot easier to just kind of fall forward. So, um, but still both of them had a decent chance, and at this point, you kind of just the model was just pretty clear, especially if you were just thinking 1 yard, that it was time to go for it. So,
Right. And so again, I think we're both on the same page. Going for it makes sense. The model supports it. So let's go and see what the play call is. I'm gonna pause before I roll it because I do want to highlight something that stood out to me rewatching this. Let's take a look at the Chargers' offensive formation because that looks awfully familiar. We got 11 personnel, we got a slot receiver in tight, and we got a tight end on the same side. Not only is it the exact same formation, but it's even weighted to the same side of the field where they're keeping their boundary guy up on the left side. So let's roll it and then we'll take a closer look. But just to highlight that. Okay, and then did anything else there look a little similar? Because let's watch the tight end and slot routes here. Okay, we got a deep cross and a shallow cross. Okay, that sounds kind of similar too, doesn't it? So I mean, again, this is where I think your point was very well received by me. We're gonna ask our receivers on the boundaries to do the exact same thing, except instead of running a hitch, they're gonna run fades, and then we're going to keep our running back uh, in on pass protection, and we're going to drag on shallow and deep crossers our middle guys as kind of checkdowns. But again, this is the same concept, and we'll watch the target here. They're just asking Josh Palmer to make a play on the ball. Like it's that there's nothing more to this offensive play. One thing, and I'll look at it from the other view, but again, watch up top. He's gonna just run a fade there, and the fade's being run down at the bottom. I guess he turns back in. I guess it's kind of a hitch. But he's looked like kind of a fade where he's gonna get it to his back shoulder here because he's taking that outside movement and then he kind of turns back in. Um, I Some people might call that a hitch. I thought it was a fade based on the movement. And then I want to take a look because this, looking at the defensive formation here, this is just Wink Martindale being himself. Let's get lined up here. So it's a mess here, a mess in a great way. So they are in nickel personnel because they have Borden Bynes in as the two linebackers. They have Houston and Owe in on the defensive line with Williams and Campbell. So Matabike and McPhee out from the last call. Elliott and Clark are right up at the line of scrimmage. I think Elliott's out of camera at this point. And then Tavon Young is kind of further back as the slot corner. And they are going to send 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Bynes might be kind of, yeah. Bynes, I think, has Eckler and Man there. That's why he goes left. But that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 man pressure against the 6-man protection. And Eckler, I think Eckler's scanning pre-snap here. And I was kind of confused here by Eckler's decision because, the numbers here, he's got Brandon Williams lined up in the left side one tech, but then he has Board, Oweh, and Campbell from the three tech over. So we have basically a three tech, that's basically a six tech, and then Board outside, kind of like a seven tech. So I was surprised. I think Eckler saw Elliott step up here. There's Elliott now, and he kind of read that as his man to go give help. But in doing so, Board gets the free rush and Board gives the pressure. So on that last play where I talked about, I was surprised that, Herbert didn't maybe take a look at his crossers. That was not happening here. The ball had to come out. But, interesting was same idea. Herbert's staring that left side down the entire time. And who is on the top? Who's on the left side there, Dan? Who's up the top corner?
Marlon. Yep. Marlon Humphrey
Marlon
again.
Humphrey
Not
again.
the guy I'd pick on.
It was so funny. Same formation, same similar type of route concepts. Again, I call it a fade. Someone's going to go in the comment section below and yell at me and call it something else. That's fine. I'm used to it. But I'm the O-line guy, not the pass guy. But I just couldn't believe this. I was shocked. It's the exact same concept. I'm going to ask my guy to beat the corner, and I'm going to throw it at Marlon Humphrey both times. So, I mean, we don't have to drone on about this, but, what do you think? Like, it just seemed crazy to me.
Yeah, and I think even to make it worse, you've got going to Palmer, right? Is that who it was targeted this
Yeah,
time?
it was Josh Palmer. I think
Yeah,
this
the
was
rookie,
after
right?
Mike
So
Williams had left because
yeah,
of the nagging injury. So, and they
so
had Keenan Allen down here in the slot, who wasn't very involved in this game. And maybe if I'm gonna, pick a guy to target, maybe I'm putting Keenan Allen out there rather than him kind of running my check down routes. And then that's
yeah.
Guyton here at the top against Averett. So, it just seemed like, I think you nailed it. I think it's in both situations, it was the right decision. The models support it. Maybe on the first one, we can have a conversation about momentum, but I don't think it was that crazy to go for it. But both times, just shocking play calls to me. And I mean, and then to do the exact same thing later, like just they're basically asking Josh Palmer to go up and beat Marlon Humphrey. And, to be fair, if we want to be really critical, if this ball was placed on his back shoulder, he did get Marlon upfield, turn back, and the ball just kind of went to the other side. So, I mean, if we want to get really nitpicky into it, right here, watch this step. He does get some separation there. Like, that's enough to make a play on the ball if it's thrown to his back shoulder. So, I mean, there's something to be said there. That's kind of the deeper look. But, I mean, poor execution by Justin Herbert on this play.
Yeah, I think even the first play there was a little bit of poor execution on it, threw it high,
Yeah.
but that's the thing is you don't want to be calling a play that you need great execution from both the quarterback and the wide receiver in order to succeed. You're you're going for short yardage, so you have the advantage here. You don't need 8 yards or something like that. You need short yards, so scheme something up that gives you an advantage. There are plenty of defenders on the Ravens who have struggled in coverage. Use Eckler, who is a phenomenal pass catching back. Put him against the inside linebackers that have struggled. It's just there are lots of matchups that you can exploit. The other, cornerbacks that aren't Marlon Humphrey, you can exploit those. Just there's so many different options that to try and test Marlon Humphrey twice even this late in the game where he's playing, sometimes he may have off games or whatever, but this wasn't one of them. So why you would try that a play that needs a quarterback and a wide receiver to execute at such a high level is just something that I didn't think makes sense in these situations.
Yeah, well said, well said. And I tried to take a look there. Maybe, even I think that's Parham in for Cook here as the tight end, and he's going to hit the chip here. He's going to hit the chip and then kind of break out. Even that's probably a higher percentage on the first down than targeting out there. I mean, Clark's back enough. the first down marker looks like it's the 20-yard line, which makes sense because it's 4th and 1 from the 19. So, catch and run against tight end, like even that makes sense as a
Mhm.
better option than going out wide there. So, I think it was poor play calling, but also, it's kind of the same idea. It's like when I get out there and I'm lined up and I'm Justin Herbert and I look out wide and I see Josh Palmer across from Marlon Humphrey, maybe we reconsider what some of my other options are on this play call. So, I think this is a great summary, Dan. Thank you so much for coming on, man. This was exactly what I'm hoping to do. Show both sides, get into the film, talk about the numbers, try and learn how to count. That's my goal by the end of the 2021 season.
We'll get you there.
Dan, yeah, tell everyone where they can find your work, my man.
Yeah, just mostly on Twitter at dpreese8. Just always shooting out analytics and all sorts of Ravens discussions. So, feel free to reach out to me with any questions. Whether it's stats or salary cap or anything like that. Love the number side of football. So
Love it. And thank you so much again, man. We're definitely going to have you on again. It's been nice in the film room to actually have two guys watching football. That is the title of the channel. Yet it's always in me here doing it myself. So it's great to have you in. And thanks everyone for stopping by. Like I said, everyone be sure to check out Flavor Cupcakery stuff. I cannot highlight this enough. Super, super excited to have them as a partner with their upcoming breast cancer awareness fundraiser. Be sure to check that out and to support that initiative. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other.